You also talked, I believe, in the same book where you talked about and gave like the analogy of like or metaphor of a apple and us going through the apple and the different like that. I really remember as being such a shocking, profound revelation as well for me years back when reading. And so could you speak a little bit to that process that I'm referring to?
Well, yeah, I simply was given an analogy, here we go again, a metaphor of a worm tunneling its way through the apple. Then it gets but in this particular case, it gets to the core of the apple, and then it comes out on the other side of the core, expecting to move through the second half of the apple, only to find that the second half is an orange, not an apple at all.
Right.
But an entirely different, if you please, piece of fruit.
Yeah.
An entirely different experience. So I've called this the applorance, APPORLANGE, the applorance, the apple orange. And it's just a metaphor to help us understand that we're going through what we might call loosely the time tunnel. But then when we get to the core or the end of our time in this particular incarnation, then we go through a door that we often call death's door. And we go through death's door, but we discover that we haven't died at all. That we simply come out on the other side into a brand new experience that we metaphorically call the orange.
You're born into the orange, right?
Which is sweeter than the apple. As sweet as the apple was, it's even sweeter than the apple. And juicier as well. It's where the real juice is in the orange. So now we go through the orange and we come out on the other side of the orange, and then we travel on the surface around the outside of it, go back around to the beginning, and come back in the apple, which we call another incarnation. Or we may decide to turn around inside the orange and go back through death's door, through the door that we call birth. I was told in Home with God that birth and death are precisely the same thing. We're simply moving from one phase of our life into another phase. We're moving from the physical phase into the spiritual phase, or back from the spiritual back into the physical. But that we are, one or the other. And we are doing this in order for us to offer ourselves continued opportunity to express and to experience who we really are, because absent the contextual field that we find in the realm of the physical, we can't experience, as I explained before, we can't experience who we really are. Yeah. This was brought home to me, by the way, in a small way, but a little old lady told me this about 7 or 8 years ago. She was standing in front of a coffee shop that I visit regularly, and she's always there. She must be in her late 70s with a little cup in her hand, standing outside the coffee shop. And people are dropping coins in as they go by, because they understand she's begging for money. But one day, I was in my cynical mood. This is before I changed my mind about who I want to be. But, I got out of my car and walked over there. Well, there she is again. It's kind of embarrassing. So I reached into my pocket. I didn't have any coins in my pocket, as it turned out. But I did have a couple of pieces of paper money. And the smallest bill I had was a $5 bill. I thought, well, whatever. So I put the $5 bill in her cup, but not without some sense of, I don't want to say resentment, but I did want to, say something to her about it. So I said, why are you always here every day? Just go out and get a job or do something. You ought to be some way that you shouldn't have to stand here and every day of your life beg people to put money in your cup. Why are you here every day? And she said, if I wasn't here, who would give you a chance today to decide who you are?
Oof. Oof.
And I stopped in my tracks.
Wow.
I looked at her and I said, whoa. I never looked at it that way.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it that way now, and this is who I am. I reached into my pocket and took all of the folding money I had in my pocket, which would probably at that point amount to about $50. I had a couple of 20s or whatever, 10 in there. I just, not try to make a show of it. It was just between her and me. Nobody else would ever know. So I wasn't bragging about it, but I just shoved it into the cup and I said, you know what? Thank you. Thank you for waking me out. I've been sleepwalking here. No wonder I'm going into the coffee shop. I need a cup of coffee badly. I've been sleeping, sleepwalking. And she joined me in the laughter and joined me in the celebration.
Wow. That's so profound.